back. It is a Thursday edition of Liquid Lunch on Newsmax TV. I'm John Tobacco. We're in the Question Tequila Studios in downtown Manhattan. A lot to get to today. We have a presidential candidate in studio with us right down the street at the New York Stock Exchange. Recovering. This morning we were down about 100. As we come into this segment, market's down about 60, so there is some recovery. Walmart beat on their estimates, so that's good news, offsetting some Cisco losses. Bitcoin is meandering its way down. I'll keep you posted on that. In the beginning of hour two, when we have crypto expert and one of the top guys in the world in private equity and entrepreneurism, Tim Draper, is going to join us on the top of the 1 o'clock hour, and we'll talk about everything that's going on in cryptocurrency. Now here in the New York City studios, Frank Morano leaves, and boy, do we upgrade. We have a presidential candidate joining us. Robert Ardini joins us today. And Robert is a Republican candidate for the President of the United States. He's also a Republican candidate for Congress in New York State. And Robert, thank you for joining us today on Liquid Lunch.
Really John, thanks for having me.
Here.
I appreciate it.
We've had a number of, I would refer to them as fringe candidates on. Okay, these are people who, you know, they want to be candidates and they maybe have a website set up, but they haven't done any groundwork. They haven't run for anything before. And we try to make Liquid Lunch a place where all voices are heard. And we know how hard it is for guys like you and women like you to get your message out to the masses. So I'm happy to have you here as a candidate for the Republican primary in New Hampshire. And I will tell you that if this doesn't tip you off, the tone of the show is to be bipartisan and let all voices be heard. My own particular leanings are I think Donald Trump is doing great things for our economy. So I want to press you a little bit on why you want to oppose him. But I'd like you to take a look at this because I appreciate you getting in because we got to beat the Democrats no matter what. And now this Elizabeth Warren, formerly known as Pocahontas, okay, she faked her way into college. She said she was an American Indian when it's been proven over and over again that she isn't. But her big plan now is to tax people on money they've already been taxed on. I want you to take a look at this and give me your comments on how you would fight against these type of policies.
Sure.
Let's take a look.
It's time for a wealth tax in America. I've heard that there are some billionaires who don't support this plan.
The vilification of billionaires makes no sense to me. It's bull.
She would ruin what we have.
So here's the deal. You built a great fortune. Good for you. A guarantee. You built it, at least in part, using workers all of us help pay to educate. Getting your goods to market on roads and bridges, all of us help pay to build.
So, Robert, let's begin. First of all, you've run for federal office before running for Congress. Now you're going for the highest office in the land. What would your platform include that would offset this craziness?
Well, first of all, I don't agree with Elizabeth Warren whatsoever at all on this subject, period. And the reason being is the rich have already paid their fair share. And if she taxes them further, that's just going to cut down on the capital that they would normally invest in businesses, which generate more jobs. So I disagree completely. Furthermore, I'm not sure Senator Warren has a mastery of economic policy in the United States. If you look back at what she said at the 2016 Democrat National Convention, she actually tried to rationalize our national debt by saying that there's plenty of money in the United States, pointing to stock market gains.
So
now, think this through. It doesn't add up.
So tell me, on a broader scale, let our audience know what you're about and why are you running for president of the United States?
Sure. My number one campaign issue is the national debt. I call it our country's silent killer. It doesn't get a lot of attention. It's sort of always pushed into the background, but it's a major problem. Why? Because if we don't get a handle on it, and get a handle on it soon, we may find ourselves in a position where if we're attacked on the homeland, we won't be able to afford to defend ourselves. The money just won't be there. Furthermore, we can't just keep printing more money and borrowing from China, because for every dollar we print, we devalue every existing dollar. And certainly borrowing from other countries doesn't work because it puts us in a compromised position.
Many people probably don't realize that when you talk about the national debt and they say, well, how do we keep running this huge deficit? We sell U.S. Treasury bonds. There's a U.S. Treasury auction every single day. And China shows up at that auction every day as a net buyer of our debt. So China is ostensibly funding our overspending.
Sure.
And if you know anything about human nature or humanity, the more someone owes you, at some point, they're going to pull that rope. And if China shows up at one of those auctions as a net seller of U.S. Treasuries, our rating may crash to below A. And
exactly.
We're not even AAA right now anymore, but this could be, it's probably the most dangerous threat there is, and I'm happy
sure.
that's what you're on to.
And to expand upon it further, great civilizations rise and fall. Right now, many of us consider ourselves the greatest country in the world. This will not last forever. What will ultimately bring our demise? The same thing that brought the demise for other great countries: financial problems.
So Robert Ardini joins us here on Liquid Lunch. He is a candidate for the Republican primary for president in New Hampshire. Robert, some other issues I'd like to talk to you about. What makes you think you have the goods to beat Donald Trump?
Okay. In 2016, I ran for Congress, and this required me to develop a position on virtually almost every pressing national issue. And these solutions are bipartisan. How and why do I call them bipartisan? Because I develop them by listening to the other side. I believe in 80% of the Republican platform, like most Republicans. But I make a point of listening to the other side, and I tend to think like a mediator. And I imagine
what do you do for a living in real life?
I'm a former advertising executive.
You're an advertiser.
Yeah, but I tend to think like an attorney.
Okay, good. Let me, in our final minute here, I want to do
Sure.
a little lightning round just so people get a full understanding. Tara, can you put up his lower third with with his website and his name right here on the 3-shot? That's fine. You have that? Okay. The issues people want to know about.
Sure.
Should we impeach Donald Trump?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
It's
great.
a non-issue, period.
Pro-choice, pro-life?
Personally, pro-life. However, I believe that's a personal decision. So in terms of other people, pro-choice.
So at what point of gestation do you think an embryo is a life? You personally.
Yeah, I don't have a personal opinion upon that. I don't think laymen should have that opinion.
Okay.
I leave that to doctors.
What do you think the most viable time for a fetus to survive outside the womb is? What part of the 3 trimesters? If you had a guess. I mean, you know, everyone has to have a thought in their head. I'm not asking you for medical certainty. I'm asking for your personal beliefs.
How old a fetus has to be.
That it could be, you know, the odds are it's viable outside the mother's womb.
The first trimester.
Okay, very good. The government should keep their hands off our guns completely, or thoughtful gun laws?
Well, the two sides can't seem to get together.
I'm
on
asking
this.
you, but
yeah.
thoughtful gun
Yeah.
legislation, or keep your hands
What
off
I
my
believe
guns?
is mental health concerns.
That's not really the answer to the question I'm asking you. Thoughtful gun legislation, or government keep your hands off my guns?
Well, thoughtful gun legislation includes my plan of having a mandate to have people see a personal care physician and maybe a social worker every year to make sure they're mentally in
Fantastic.
check.
I can tell you this, we want all voices to be heard. Robert Ardini, thank you so much for coming down here.
You're welcome.
I hope our audience checks out a little more about you. He certainly knows what direction he's heading in now in politics, because it's very difficult to get a binary answer out of him on his gun position. But I guess you can go to Robert Ardini for president and find out what the more binary answer to that is. Thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate you being here. Melissa Chen joins us next. She's the New York City editor for Spectator USA. Stay right there, Liquid Lunch, after this. Great job.
Thanks for having me.